Welcome to Denver Theory Lab.
Denver Theory Lab? Okay.
Denver Theory Lab. Let's do it.
Welcome to Denver Theory Lab. This is Jesse,
And this is Kyle.
where we aim to investigate and explore theoretical and practical ideas, conspiracies, events, and practices from an objective point of view to expand our range of thinking.
All right, we've got some great topics set on the agenda to go over tonight, but before we get into those deep topics, we got some more lighthearted, fun topics to go over here of some weird laws in Colorado and other states.
It is allowable for persons to rip tags off pillows and mattresses in Colorado.
And so the mattress, I think we've all seen the mattresses with the giant tags, and turns out in the late 19th and early 20th century, some manufacturers were stuffing mattresses and pillows with unsanitary or cheap materials like horsehair, old rags, or even food waste, and then selling them as new mattresses. So people would get home and, after a few days, they maybe start to notice a smell. And turns out your mattress was filled with someone else's dirty bath towels. It's we have those tags so we know that the inside of our mattresses and pillows aren't gross.
In Louisville, residents are allowed to own as many as 3 turkeys, but absolutely no chickens.
I guess people there people must have got really fed up with the sound of the roosters, because they're allowed to have a lot of different birds, just not the chickens. Roosters absolutely not allowed, but they can have turkeys, ducks, geese. If they have chickens, there's special zoning rules, minimum lot size, coop requirements, but roosters, absolutely not allowed.
No fake mustaches in church if they cause laughter in Alabama.
So apparently Alabama's early blue laws, they had laws regulating moral behavior. Sounds about right for Alabama. And they had a lot of laws that were focused on Sunday, rules against disrupting religious worship. So this one went along with wearing disguises or costumes in church if the intent was to cause disturbance or laughter. But you just know that somebody annoyed some preacher who had some state senator's ear or something like that, and the next thing you know, bam, here's a law. You can't make us laugh in church. So,
Oh, yeah. That's where laws come from, is you piss somebody off.
right.
Somebody's got to do it wrong first.
Right.
Arizona, there's no donkeys allowed to sleep in bathtubs.
And this one was a fun one. Apparently back in the 1920s, a rancher was trying to save his donkey from a flood affecting the area, and he brought the donkey in and put him in the bathtub. Well, the flood ends up washing the farm out, and the donkey takes a ride downriver several miles in this bathtub. The state ends up having to pay for a big rescue effort, costs a lot of money, a lot of manpower, and afterwards they decide, we don't ever want to do this again. It's now illegal to put your donkey in the bathtub. You would think you wouldn't make a law for this one situation.
Wouldn't have washed any further
Right? He would have
outside of the bathtub.
He probably would have drowned without his bathtub boat. Would a bathtub really save you in the event of a flood? Like,
You gotta think it's a clawfoot cast iron bathtub. I'm surprised it floated at all.
It had to be made of something else, right? Because that's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't think of most bathtubs as being made of a material that you could use as a boat.
When was the law ratified?
That was 1920.
Yeah, the bathtubs were made out of
heavy things.
Iron.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what. Well, maybe he had a cheaper bathtub. He's living out in rural areas.
Okay.
Maybe he just had some polished wood or something. He was just getting in an old barrel.
In Connecticut, pickles must bounce to be legally sold. Bounce test required.
Yeah, apparently they back in the day they had a lot of people selling bad pickles out there, and the state had to figure out a way to they can test the pickles to figure out if they're good, and they determined that a pickle that has been what's the term? I want to say pickled, but that I know that's not the term. Fermented. Yeah, a pickle that's been fermented properly has a bounce to it, and one that is rotten doesn't have a bounce. So this is
Go splat instead.
Yeah, this is how they're checked. They had to be a little offensive to the guy selling the pickles, though. The cop comes over, let me see that, and they just toss it, and you're like, all right, you're good to go. Carry on.
I think it's just an easy way for the cop to get a free pickle.
Yeah, probably.
This one looks like it bounces. Let's taste it first.
Yeah.
Minnesota greased pig contests are illegal.
Yeah, I've never seen one of those, but I now have, this is now on my bucket list. I need to see a greased pig contest.
Yeah, redneck parties are fun.
Yeah, that's got to be quite a sight.
I think greased watermelons are a lot of fun too. You grease up a watermelon, throw it in the pool, and say whoever gets it out of the pool first wins.
I'm disappointed that I've never done that.
Very, very tricky.
It sounds like it would be.
It sounds like it's doable, or like there's a technique to it, but really it's just pandemonium.
Yeah.
New Jersey men can't knit during fishing season.
And so looking that one up, that one appeared to be more of an old joking law of they have really, really strict fishing laws up there. And I guess, back in the day, people they expected men to, of course, never be knitting, but they were. It was their way of just saying, if you're not out, you've got to be out working. You're expected to be doing it by society.
South Dakota, no sleeping in cheese factories.
And not even if you're standing up, that one's real as it can get. I would imagine that law for a spot like Wisconsin. Like how many cheese factories does South Dakota have for this to become a problem? But it's that's another really old law. So it's from the 1800s, but completely illegal.
Does South Dakota have a cheese factory?
I wonder if they have any.
I thought it was all Wisconsin or Wisconsin.
Well, the Dakotas, and they aren't far from there,
No,
so I
not
could
far.
see they being involved in that industry. Let's see. Yep, they apparently have major commercial cheese plants.
Oh,
Apparently, it's a big part of South Dakota. Cheese.
didn't know that.
Yep.
Tennessee, sharing Netflix passwords is illegal. I thought that was illegal everywhere.
So that is. And
But
this
it's
one was
unenforceable.
well, this one was an interesting one. It's not the way it's written is the way the law is written is a bit confusing. But what they were aiming to make illegal is actually something meant to save consumers. Something I did not know was a thing. But apparently, scam artists out there get people's login for streaming services and any sort of service that we pay for. It could be Hulu, Netflix, it could be Spotify, anything like that. Streamers get people's login information, and then they sell it. So they sell access and use it, for others. So this law is meant to protect the consumers from someone stealing our logins. Even though it's written in a way that makes it seem like, hey, sharing the password is legal, but it's not for someone sharing it. It's for someone taking your password and sharing it without your consent.
Virginia, trick-or-treating restricted for ages 14 and up.
Yeah.
Or above 14.
I thought that one would just be, a bunch of old religious types not wanting to see any adults out there trick or treating. But turns out back in the '60s there were some couple of stabbings, and so I was they were living their own horror movie out there
Oh shit.
during Halloween with adults dressed up and going out and committing crimes.
Washington, harassing Bigfoot is illegal.
So I think a lot of those spots out there on the West Coast, they Bigfoot's might as well be their tourism mascot, but they're really big into capitalizing on tourists looking for Bigfoot and that sort of thing. And according to ChatGPT, that law is just meant to prevent tourists or people going out and hunting parties and prevent the possibility of someone potentially getting shot while people are looking for Bigfoot.
Oh yeah.
But apparently back in the 60s, there were a lot of people coming from all over the country. It must have been after one of those, there's like the big footage that supposedly someone caught Bigfoot like walking at a distance from decades ago. I bet after that footage came out, their area was probably just flooded with people from all over the country thinking they're going to come and be the one to find Bigfoot.
Right.
So
That's fun.
I'm sure the locals don't want armed Americans from all over the country wandering their woods ready to shoot anything that looks unfamiliar.
In Maryland, all forms of oral sex are illegal, either with people or animals.
Well,
That's interesting that they put animals in there as well. I mean, bestiality, I think, is illegal in all states, but
this one, another real law, but this one's been overturned now. So
Oh, is
the the Supreme Court law that made when the Supreme Court made gay marriage legal, they nullified all states' morality laws on things like this. But this was part of their morality laws in Maryland that made oral sex and anal sex illegal for any and everyone, and with people, and they made sure to write it into the law, illegal to do with animals as well.
yeah.
What sort of conversations were people having in the late 1800s and 1900s where they wanted to go into the state capitol building and discuss that in the first place?
And probably the guys that weren't getting any.
Right.
Just pissed off that they couldn't get oral sex.
I'd love to hear. I wish I could just be a fly on the wall, go back in time, and listen to them. Open the floor to describe that bill and
Right.
the merits of it.
It's illegal to eat raw onions while walking down the street in Northfield, Connecticut. Raw onions.
Why with
Cooked
that?
onions are okay.
Just not raw.
And so long as you're not walking down the street and just sitting on the street corner, it's okay. But not walking down the street and raw onion. Oddly specific.
Very. But there's other spots in Connecticut where they have similar laws banning onion eating in theaters.
I guess that was a problem. It'd be noisy and smelly, and
What's so wrong with onion eaters?
I don't know. It's
Who-
not popcorn.
It's not,
It's probably a popcorn conspiracy.
I gotta say, if
People
I see
are
you
eating
walking
onions
down the
instead of
street,
popcorn.
if I see you walking down the street eating a raw onion, I am going to question. I might have questions.
I would stop and look.
Yeah,
Look at that guy eating an onion.
right. It's it's probably not the best look, just to be crunching on an onion.
In Nacogdoches, Texas, there's an onion curfew for young women. Under no circumstances are they allowed to have any raw onions after 6 p.m.
What is up with the onions?
I don't know. I think it encompasses garlic too, for some reason, if I remember correctly. It was unladylike to have onion or garlic breath for a young lady.
So make it illegal.
Yeah.
Make it illegal.
In Louisiana, it's illegal for a woman to drive a car without her husband waving a flag in front of it beforehand.
So that
The
one,
visual of that is just hilarious.
yeah. So then I chat GPT that one too. Another real law, but old law. And it wasn't just for the women in the cars. It's from when cars first were becoming a thing. So late 1800s, as automobiles are first becoming a thing and spreading across the country, a lot of states did red flag laws where it was illegal to drive your car without someone ahead waving a red flag to tell the people on horseback that there's an automobile coming.
Ah.
Seems like it's not very practical to travel if you're doing that.
Yeah,
but-
why are you walking if you can ride in the car?
Right. Well, if someone walking with a flag,
Was that before they invented horns for the car?
I get, I'm imagining it's got to be when the car was more just showy than anything else. Because
Yeah.
if someone has to stay in front of you with a red flag, you're not going to get very far. And the Onions, just looked that one up, and apparently it was just a big part of the etiquette and social norms in the late 19th and early 20th century. Raw onions, of course, have a strong odor, and they were associated with poor manners and lower social status. So they said poor manners and poor people. So no onions,
That's funny.
right?
Well, I think that's all I have for Goofy Laws. We'll check back next week and see if there's any more that I find.
Now we've got our deeper topics to sort of delve into. Which one would you like to start?
I think six-fingered giants. Six-fingered giant gingers.
Yeah.
Supposedly they're redheads as well. You had mentioned that there's many, many different stories, including in the Bible, that there are giants that are part of our history somehow. And they all have a commonality of having 6 fingers and 6 toes. And many of them have been known to have red hair as well. The idea of six-fingered giants originates from biblical texts and is also found in various myths and legends around the world. Specifically, the Bible mentions a giant with 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot in 2 Samuel 21:20. This giant, like others in lineage, is described as being descended from Rephaim, a race of giants. Tales of giants with extra digits are also found in other cultures, often associated with unusual features like red hair and doubled rows of teeth. What did your research show?
So from looking at different articles and that sort of thing, what I've seemed to find is there seems to be accounts from various cultures all pointing at the existence of a race of people who seem to be in the minority even when they were around. So for amongst the Native Americans, there's a lot of tales of European explorers who would say that the chief of the native tribes, as they would go to these different areas, seemed to be of this different group of people having 6 fingers, being considerably taller, in the 9 foot over, generally speaking, over 7 feet. I want to say somewhere between 7 and 12 feet is the average of the different skeletons they were finding. And the European colonial explorers, as they're running into Native American tribes and they're seeing different chiefs that have this, there are skeletons that have been found in spots like North Africa that show humanoids that have 6 fingers. The hair is always a little bit more questionable because if the hair is on a skeleton, you have to look and see, well, was this time and age? Was this the sun that did that to his hair? Is that its natural hair color? But some of the articles looking at the South American, especially around the Andes area, around Peru, looking at the mummies found there, they did find that a minority of those mummies seemed to have genetics different than all of the others around them, to have red hair, which would have been, extremely rare in the pre-Columbian, the Andes area. So I personally think whoever these people were, I think they are probably very tied to a lot of the monuments that we just toss to ancient history, and can't really figure out who did it. We know that, hey, at some point in the past there must have been advanced groups working, or making advanced constructions in the world. There's these stories of Atlantis and all these other spots. The Native American cultures themselves, before Columbus arrived, had tales of what did it say they were called? The Moon People, right? The different tribes.
Yeah, most of the research I saw that almost all of the tribes referred to the giants as moon people, which I found interesting. That there's definitely commonality between the legends of different tribes and different histories there. I didn't really go into it much farther than that as far as the moon people went, but
when Columbus arrived, they thought, because of the look of the European explorers with Columbus, they thought their gods were returning, and so they were much more friendly and probably naive to the European explorers who were showing up right then, because they thought, hey, these are our gods. They are red-headed. They're pale. But it just begs the question of, if there was another group in a minority of the population back then, that the rest of the population was elevating to a status of being like nobility, or their ruling class, or venerating them as gods, where did this other group come from, and where did they go?
well, definitely it's a creature more powerful than you, because it could be seen as a god. I mean, something that's twice your size and could squash you with the tip of his finger, I would definitely revere as more powerful in one sense or another.
Right.
And, if they could help you move large objects and do construction, or, guide you to places that you didn't previously know about, like sources of water or sources of food, and teach you things that maybe your race didn't already know.
It would be easy to see why they would be venerated.
Yeah.
So, for a long time, I've been a believer in the theories that say that, hey, some cataclysm happened a long time ago, and there was some previous civilization, and the refugees of this civilization, let's say refugees of Atlantis, if you will, survived the cataclysm, spread out across the world, and basically planted the seeds of civilization to get us to where we are today. And so, I kind of wonder, are these people from some lost civilization? Are they the remnants of that? Is that why we find few of them, but around the world? And, seemingly everywhere where they were, the other people seem to venerate them and see them as being really intelligent, really useful to their group, to their civilization.
Some of the tribes include Cherokee, Ute, Paiute. They all
Choctaw
Choctaw, yeah.
and Chickasaw.
They viewed them as cannibals, living in caves as well, which I imagine it'd be hard to conceal yourself if you're outside of a cave and 10 feet tall.
Right.
Because I'm sure some people probably saw it as a threat and maybe tried to attack them. Well, I guess, if you're a cannibal, you don't want to be hanging around a bunch of people and just snatch somebody up and then expect them to love you.
Right.
Unless, maybe the Aztecs were doing human sacrifice for the giants, or I don't know what.
Well, for the Choctaw, their legend about them claims that their word for them, they called them the Nahulo. That's the Choctaw word for the race of giants, and they claimed that these much bigger people were around, this cannibalistic race, but their early tales of this were dismissed and thought it was just tall tales from the natives. But they had other tales that were dismissed by the establishment back then, and the archaeological establishment, historians, tales of mastodons that used to roam the Great Plains. And back when they were originally telling these stories in the early and mid 1800s, it's being completely dismissed because we're still at the beginnings of paleontology and finding a lot of the animals that are no longer around anymore. So now we look back at their tales of how their people followed the mastodon to get to what was their homeland in the southeast and the eastern coast of the United States. And that tale makes sense. We now know that the mastodon did roam the Great Plains of America and move across North America. So if something like that got proved to be true, and it was just something that they told as their tales, if they claimed to have battled with this much bigger group of people that they describe so distinctly, I think it definitely deserves more scrutiny from historians to consider and say, hey, are there groups that we have left out of the historical record? More than that, I would want to know if there's groups that we've left out of the historical record. Why have they been left out of the historical record? What could have explained their genetic abnormalities of having 6 fingers, as they're claimed to have, or 6 toes? And then the double rows of teeth, which I found an interesting article that seemed to at least give a different take on the double rows of teeth. Pretty much saying that, hey, in the 1800s, what we call molar teeth, another word they had for it back then, was double rows. And so they would say our back teeth were double teeth. So then, it just kind of changes what you're imagining. If you say, hey, there's a humanoid there with double rows of teeth, are we saying they have molars all the way around? So like teeth like a cow, meant for eating plants? Or are we saying double rows of teeth, 2 on the top and 2 rows on the bottom, which it is a genetic condition that can happen to some people, where essentially what happens is your baby teeth never fall out.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you have the one set, and then another set comes in later in life, and then you have
Yeah.
double row.
Well, that kind of leads me to think about back in dinosaur period, everything was much larger, and they estimate that the oxygen level back then was probably closer to 50% oxygen rather than the 20% we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been studies that show with filtered light, the X-ray and gamma ray removed from the light, and high oxygen content allows plants and animals to grow to a much larger value, and they produce more and whatnot. So that leads me to believe that maybe the giant DNA originated from a much more ancient time when there was more oxygen on the earth, and their genetic code was designed to take advantage of that.
Well, that would make total sense to me. If we go back just to the last ice age, which we know people were pretty much around for. To see the hunt the woolly mammoth and everything else like that. If we were living at a time period where somehow nature had made all these other animals grow to colossal sizes, the saber-toothed tiger, the woolly mammoth, and you could go on and on with these very, very large creatures, and some of the flora, the trees out in California, the giant redwoods and great sequoias, they're supposedly from those further back time periods when Earth did have a lot more oxygen in its atmosphere. So if those creatures and that plant life was made to grow into much bigger sizes, due to the conditions on Earth, it would only stand to reason that people should have too. And, we know that our bodies, our genetics are incredibly dynamic in responding to the environment and the conditions of the environment. I think we talked about in one of the first week we sat down, we talked about how the Dutch kids born under Nazi occupation,
Yeah.
they grew up to be much smaller than their parents. So, yeah, if the conditions are right for it, it would only make sense that there should be people who are growing much bigger. Could we have had divergent groups amongst people even at a time like that? If there was a time period where there was some level of civilization in the world, some level of civilization enough to be able to build pyramids, step pyramids, and the stone monuments we see in the Andes that we attribute to the Inca, like Machu Picchu and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We look at how we have our society today. It's not equal. There's some people who have access to a whole lot more of others. Could there have been a time period where human society was living in a similar way, where things were not equal, and maybe they were playing around with genetic experimentation? Maybe this six-fingered race is the remnant of transhumanism.
Well, we keep saying that the technology, ancient technology, was much more advanced than what we have today, and somehow there was a reset, if not multiple resets. Somehow, why couldn't it be some sort of remnant of a genetic experiment?
The only thing that would make me say that,
or maybe we're the genetic experiment.
Yeah, Well, obviously, the only thing that makes me want to think that they wouldn't have been too smart is if the accounts we have, a lot of them claim that they were cannibals. Now that could just be, the victor writes the history, so we write, we're going to write it to demonize those who were killed, not the other way around.
Yeah.
But if they're living in caves and are cannibalistic, they don't sound all that intelligent. If they are something different than us, and they were the fact that our ancient people venerated them as gods or their chosen leaders, that's the only thing that seems to give it some credence that they were intelligent. Makes me even think about the Sumerian story of our creation there. They in their creation story, they have the exact same verbiage from that's in Genesis of man being made in their image, but it's just man being made in the image of the Anunnaki. So
Yeah.
some other humanoid out there, it always just gets me excited and thinking like, oh, are we finding Anunnaki skeletons? Is that what this is, or
Yeah.
what do we get out of that?
Or whatever slave race the Anunnakis had.
Right. Well, according to their mythology, they had us and the Ajiji.
Well, all of the ancient architecture had vaulted ceilings beyond anything necessary according to us. I mean, maybe there were 10, 20, 30-foot tall creatures that came to visit in these
More than that.
ancient architecture.
More than that. I mean, some of the buildings that we still use today have that. Like the Vatican. Have you seen the giant doors at the Vatican?
They're massive.
And not only massive, but they have a little I don't know what you call the little latch that you can close on a door. Let's see. I need to say Vatican giant doors. That way they show me the right doors.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, those are huge.
No, this one is. Here we go. This is the one I'm looking at. Look at that door lock.
It's
I can't get to it that way.
40 feet in the air.
Right. The door. The
Nobody
door
can
lock.
lock that door.
Who was that? Yeah. Who was
That's
supposed
the
to?
giant.
Exactly. It makes you wonder who this building was built for. Was it built for someone who is somewhere between 9 and 12 feet tall? Because they're standing in there, or if there are people, why should that even be the maximum? Like you're saying, if there was a time period where Earth had much more oxygen, If we mix that in with the theories that say whatever cataclysm happened came at the end of the ice age, maybe it's these people who were living during that ice age or before it that were the larger people, and by the time we get to the end of the ice age, all we have is a remnant of them.
Yeah.
But you got giant doors, you've got giant books. Have you ever seen those? There are some, and what's crazy
Are
about
those
the
all
giant
at the Vatican, or are those just
most
in
of
general?
them, most of them are at the Vatican.
That's another topic I wanted to explore maybe on another episode, was the
Vatican's
Vatican
library?
library
Oh yeah,
and they've got so many sub levels, and then supposedly there's sub levels that even the cardinals and the Pope don't have access to down there.
well, somebody's got to have access.
Somebody's got to, but it's so secretive that nobody knows who.
But yeah, I mean, so with some of these giant books, and I feel like the Vatican, for them, it's about like our CIA and about like intelligence with the American government, where you get an organization that big, and it's like, well, who really has access to everything? Someone does, but it's
There's one patron saint that's allowed to go down there, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he's the great sorcerer of.
They probably have the answers to a lot of the questions anybody could ask in their library. But
Depends. Yeah, if you know how to read whatever language it's written in.
right, and you
Could
got
be
to
some
know
unknown languages.
you've got to know what to ask for. That's that's the trick with getting anything out of the Vatican library is you have to. They don't tell you what the contents of the library are, so you don't get a list to look from, and you have to know what to request to even request it. So you can ask to see anything. They might say yes, but if
They
you
don't
don't know
want anybody poking around.
right, but if you don't know what to ask for, you don't even know where you really want to start.
Yeah, if you know where to look.
With a lot of these, jumping back to the giant books here, with a lot of these, most of them are really old. A lot of them are from medieval times or older. But what I find fascinating with them, one is why in the world would anybody in medieval times make a book as big as a person? The books are incredibly heavy; they're hundreds of pounds. It's entirely not practical.
The amount of resources it takes to make it.
Right.
How much paper?
Supposedly, this was at a time period
How
when the
how
vast
heavy is it?
majority. Let's see.
It's probably 300-400 pounds. Maybe they just wanted a copy that would last, or not walk away.
Well, they got that. It's definitely not going to walk away. 165 pounds. Yeah, that one, the Devil's Bible. That's one of the most famous medieval manuscripts, and it's written in a funny language.
I read something about that some guy was about to get beheaded, and he said, "Don't behead me. I will produce the greatest work of art you've ever seen." And within 30 days, he wrote the Devil's Bible. And some of the manuscript was super detailed and undeniably like outward worldly.
Mm-hmm. But the story alone of how it was supposedly created in that short period of time, given the contents of it and the drawings and everything in it, is wild. But to me, when you add to that story that, oh, by the way, the book he wrote, it's a giant book.
Also, yeah.
You know,
Also, it's 6 feet tall.
yeah, it's the book is 165 pounds. You know that the
Does it
book
say
weigh-
36 inches, 3 feet? 3 feet tall, 20 inches wide when closed, and 8.5 inches thick. It's a big book.
It's a huge book, and to think that people in the medieval time, when most people can't read or write, are making these giant books that just from the size of it, you would need to have two people to carry it.
So there's an entire collection of these giant books. How large is this collection? At least this collection, I wonder. And is it all at the Vatican?
Oh no, some of these are in different. I think the Codex Gigas is not at the Vatican. It's in various different countries.
Codex Gigas, huh?
That's the.
That looks like
Devil's
it's written in
Bible
Hebrew.
one. This one.
Oh,
Well,
no,
you
it's
can't
just-
tell
it's-
with the medieval
It
script.
might just be Gothic.
Let's ask where is the largest collection.
Because I'm wondering, like, we're not just talking about one book or 5 books. Are we talking about hundreds and thousands of books that are that large? Because that would just be more tangible proof that there was most likely a giant race of humanoids that were intelligent, at least intelligent enough to read and write,
Right?
right?
Well, the way the Bible describes the Bible describes it says the giants are pretty much the descendants of the intermixing between fallen angels and man and mankind.
Demigods.
Yeah. So it describes them as the men of renown of old. So, and in some of the books they pulled from the Bible, we have 66 books in the Bible, which, I could.
Those
say
are just the
something.
ones that made it in.
Those are the ones that made it in, and I do find it it's a funny coincidence that it's 66. What a number, for them to land on. But
Who was the editor of the Bible? Who was the executive editor of the Bible? Who decided
the Nicene Council,
the Nicene Council?
a council put together by a Roman emperor. The Roman Empire got together and said, "We've got to formalize this." And they had a couple of councils, but it was the Council
Roman
of Nicaea.
Empire that was threatened by Jesus' presence?
That's right. That the very one. that Roman Empire. They got together and said, "We've got to solidify." But it was, they got together for the Council of Nicaea. This is by this point, the Roman Empire has already embraced Christianity, so it's after Constantine, and they get together and do that. But yeah, prior to that, it was, there was no Bible at all. There was many books, a whole collection of different books. Every single book of the Bible was its own book in writing. But yeah, and some of the one that they took out in the Book of Enoch, which spends the most time talking about the fallen angels and their impact on humanity. It claims that the fallen angels pretty much gave us everything to be the foundation of civilization: reading, writing, farming, the arts, metalworking, you name it. It says we got it from them. And it goes so far as to say a lot of the big figures in that ancient world who different cultures were looking at as their gods or their heroes, Hercules and these other mythical people, Gilgamesh, that they were all the descendants of the fallen angels and mankind, the intermixing, the Nephilim giants.
Mm-hmm.
So, that adds to the narrative of this other race being advanced if they were around. And so trying to see how many historical giant books there are. Let's see. The British Library, extensive holding of that doesn't really tell us how many. They have an extensive holding.
Largest collections of oversized medieval codices.
Oh, and they were designed for communal use in cathedrals, making them extremely large.
So what, more than one person can read it at the same time?
I guess so.
Likely story.
Right, right.
I think you just make another copy of 5 small ones of the same thing.
Yeah.
Then you got 5 different people reading it.
They've got a library in Germany known for its Renaissance. So they're definitely. So let me
Does
see.
it say how many books are in the Vatican? What did it say? Large form, oversized medieval codices.
It didn't say. The Vatican, it just says, many of these books were holds the largest collection of oversized medieval codices and choir books in the world. I'm sure they do have the largest collection. I'd say, given how many libraries have them,
Well-kept secret of some sort.
yeah. One of the largest and oldest Greek Bible manuscripts, the Codex Vaticanus. Oh, okay. So I knew they were supposed to have like one of the oldest supposed Bibles. Yeah, the Vatican Library. That's in a world where technology and knowledge is so crucial to any nation or any organization's power. It's incredible the power they must have that they wield silently for the most part, the Vatican.
Yeah.
That whole library, all of that is just, that's knowledge and power, but nobody ever gets to see it, so we don't get much out of that. And then I saw you added the article there about the stories of the giant of Kandahar. Did you get a chance to check out that story, and what did you think
I
about
did a
that?
little bit, but let's refresh my memory for the folks listening.
So the giant of Kandahar, this is a story that
Red hair, it looks like.
yeah, supposedly just unkempt red hair, and this is while our U.S. military was in Afghanistan. So this is we've been talking about ancient giants, and we've been talking about giant skeletons and that sort of thing, but this story is from modern times. So the way the story goes, our troops are out there in Afghanistan, doing their thing, and they apparently in the desert come across this giant standing over 12 feet tall. Eyewitness claimed the beast had 6 fingers on each hand and 2 rows of teeth. And according to the story, the military, the soldiers, they light him up with gunfire, and he does not immediately go down. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure the story said he took out some of the soldiers, and then once they did get him down, their orders were to take him back to Washington.
Well, yeah.
To
Study this massive creature.
Right. So inside the group found human remains after they've killed us. So so the story: U.S. military personnel were on patrol in the mountains of Afghanistan when they stumbled upon a mysterious cave. Inside, the group found human remains, bones, and dead bodies. Before they could explore further, the Kandahar giant emerged and attacked the soldiers. So one thing to add here is, going along with this, the locals there in Kandahar, in Afghanistan, and just in that general rural area of the Middle East, the locals still have tales of giants that live out in the middle of nowhere to this day. They believe, a lot of them believe, that there are giants out there who will kill you if you stumble upon their territory. So, and I remember hearing a person talk about this before, and one of the things they pointed out, they said, hey, it's no accident that the supposed oldest part of the world, where all this history is, where Babylon is, where ancient Egypt is, and where Jerusalem, so much of human history is supposedly tied in that part of the world, the Middle East and North Africa. And it's probably not an accident that it's kept under constant warfare and chaos. So there can be no real examination of anything going on out there. No serious, deep archaeological study, nothing. Because it's always kept in chaos.
Yeah, that's a theory.
So.
I think war is meant to create the distraction, and also to keep the machine turning.
Yeah.
You got to keep pumping funds into war, keep pumping humans into war. You got to keep pumping your focus into war, and it's meant to distract us entirely from all these other things that they're trying to keep hush hush.
Yeah. Well, it seems like
one
every
of them
time
being a giant, apparently.
Yeah. So it says armed and trained for war, the Army unit fought back and killed the massive creature. Military helicopter was then called in to transport the body out of the remote area, but no official record of the incident exists. Some claim the event was classified, while skeptics continue to argue it's a hoax with no evidence to support it ever happened. Eyewitness accounts describe the giant as having strikingly unusual feature, the strangest of which were its enormous head, 6 fingers on each hand, multiple rows of teeth, and deep-set menacing eyes. Some versions of the legend claim the creature was moved incredibly fast despite its massive size.
Yeah, there's numerous stories that I found, and didn't have enough time to research all of them. There was a guy named Ralph Glidden that claimed he found a number of, basically a giant graveyard on some island somewhere, and I believe a bunch of people decided to, like he was just making up giant stories to get funding for his archaeological dig site. It was very interesting to see that he had stories of giants which were very similar to the rest of the stories of giants, and that he was discredited because he was trying to make money through this museum that he had and all kinds of other things that he had there. And then I also saw that on his gravestone that he was a Freemason. So I noticed that there's a lot of architecture with like the Masonic symbol on there, and it shows on your gravestone that you're a Freemason. You have the choice of putting that on your gravestone. I wonder what the significance of that is in the Masonic histories, and it's one of the older modern day secret societies that we have, and they from what I read about Masonic history and what they practice is that you have to believe in a supreme being. They don't care what it is, but
Right.
you have to believe in something greater than yourself, which is fair. I agree. I think everybody should believe that, because I don't think we're here alone. I don't think we're just meat robots. Maybe we are coded. Maybe we were put here by an AI to discover AI all over again. Maybe that's the cycle of it, and maybe we're coded somehow. But either way, there's something more powerful than us that
I would agree.
took part in putting us here.
I would agree, and that's pretty much what I've heard as the one. Other than you got to be invited by another member has to. It's a invite only club, of course.
It
with
is,
Masons,
yeah.
but-
It's invite only, and I think it's strictly men.
yeah, but they have alternative for it's not a sororities for women. Like there's the some big people. Not surprisingly, big people in our history. Big women in America's history were parts of the female version of the Masons. So, like Rosa Parks, I believe it's called the Order of the Eastern Star. Yeah, Order of the Eastern Star is and I guess they are open to men and women. But I've only ever, I didn't know they were open to men too, in the mid 19th century, with the intention of extending Masonic principles to women. So, but you would think normally if someone's a Mason, you would think that they're all towing, or I guess the way it's normally talked about is as if they're operating as one entity, towing the same line, helping each other. And I would bet with an organization as big as theirs are, I bet you have factions.
Yeah, it's been stated there's many different chapters or factions, and but part of the way I interpreted it in some of the readings was that it's designed to be helpful to one another, or at least the Masons of a brother Mason, and it's there's some symbolism that goes together with it, like the Eye of Providence, the all-seeing eye, which we see on the dollar bill, and that's Masonic symbol. Catholicism forbids Freemasonry.
You know why the pyramids are not finished on the back of the dollar?
Why?
Supposed to represent that our work as a nation, as a people, it's never finished.
Never
God's
finished.
work is never finished.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought that was beautiful symbolism of like, yeah, we're always working at it. We're always trying to reach higher.
Yeah. Well, I find a lot of interest in the ancient architecture and with or without the Masons. And some of them I've seen that some of the tile work in some of these chapels, it looks like a computer chip,
Yeah,
or like the pathways, electrical pathway that a PC board would have on it.
do you mean the ancient, like these ancient temples that seem to
Some
from
of
above?
them are ancient. Yeah, like you look down and it looks like a giant computer chip where it's meant to generate some sort of energy or like maybe it's actually generating electricity somehow.
They look like it looks like an electrical grid. I have seen
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about, and what I was saying, I think it was the first week we sat down when I mentioned the pyramids. Is it's that design of how when you zoom out and look at some of these things, it looks like that. It makes me wonder, like, is something being, there's got to be some form of energy we're not aware of that's being harvested. If like, because that's like you said, that's what like a computer chip looks like from above when we're looking at it. But if we're walking around on the inside of it and everything else, are we just in, I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty, but there's an episode where he's having trouble with his spaceship and he's, must be trouble with the battery. And so he goes inside of his car and he's made a universe, or he's made a world inside of his car's battery. And this entire world, all of their excess energy goes to powering this guy's spaceship. So essentially he's created slavery with extra steps, and the people just don't know that when they are creating electricity, like when they're building all their buildings and building their civilization up, it's really all to just go power this old man's spaceship.
Yeah. Why not?
Right?
It might not be too far from the truth.
Right? Maybe we're in a battery.
If you look there, that looks exactly like a computer chip. That floor in this cathedral, Cartes Cathedral, in France, it looks like.
From 1194?
Construction from 1194.
But that what that design makes me also think about, though, is could it be a depiction of cymatics?
Oh yeah, it certainly could be a depiction of cymatics. Like we were talking
That was one of the
about
other things we had on the list.
hieroglyphs being more of a symbol of a visualization of a sound wave or frequency, to basically give us the recipe for whatever it was they were working with.
Or not just
To draw energy from an aquifer underneath the Great Pyramid, which the pillars and whatnot are tapped into. Supposedly there was an aquifer that ran underneath the pyramids of Giza from the Nile. Now that the Nile's like changed and receded, the aquifer is no longer there, but the pyramids in Mexico, they're all laid out exactly the same as well. They supposedly follow Orion's belt per se, and their layout in reference to one another is exactly the same as
what we
ones in
see
Giza.
in Giza.
And there is an aquifer there, and I imagine that there's probably pillars that are similar as well to tap into the energy source that they're tapping into.
Right.
And I wonder if it all it takes is that cymatic to actually tap into some of these things. Like I've often thought that frequencies allow you to tap into different parallel universes, to different windows in time, to your vibration always allows you to communicate better with one person or another. But
Right.
so
And it can change a mood. Just sound alone can make us feel relaxed. It can make us feel more alert. And with the things we know now, you can levitate things.
Yeah.
You can levitate a rock.
I think that's how they built the pyramids was with acoustic levitation.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think knowing how to properly manipulate sound, and I think the ancients were aware of the power of sound. I mean, even I hate to keep jumping back to just the Bible, but even the first, the opening of the Bible, everything begins with sound. Everything begins with God speaking, and from the speaking,
God's voice, and so God spoke, and then there was blah blah blah.
right? And they put early emphasis in the early text of the Bible. There's a big emphasis on like knowing the proper name of God, which I feel like the church has long since just given up on trying to give us the name, and now they're just like, "Yep, that's long lost. That's why you get to, is they pulled it out at some point clearly, or if they didn't, it would have been long lost as language changes." But the fact that they put a big emphasis on whatever that name is, whatever that sound is because they felt that there was power in the sound of something. If you go back to the way magic is depicted in shows and movies and in fiction, the way magic is depicted in fiction, one key element that's always thrown in there is when they're saying magical words, you got to say them right. So it's like we're showing. I feel like in a way we as people are showing our understanding that on some deep, deep level, we understand that there is so much power to sound, frequency.
Words are wands.
Right, exactly. The words are wands.
What's the deal with the Sphinx being all over the world? The Grand Canyon, it looks like there used to be a Sphinx there, or the Grand Canyon. I saw a picture the other day that was kind of blew my mind. The Grand Canyon, if you look at it from the right angle, looks like a mining operation.
Yeah.
Like somebody excavated all the minerals there and then just left it to nature afterwards, and then water started flowing through it, and we're like, oh yeah, the water just carved it out.
Right.
It looks just like a mineral mine.
If they would have, to get everything out of there. Well, I think we had a global culture. And what's funny is that area in the Grand Canyon that looks like a Sphinx and pyramid. It's even set up like the pyramid at Giza with the Sphinx. If you're standing right in front of the Sphinx, the pyramid is directly behind you. So a good visual. But that area is guarded by the military. That area of the Grand Canyon is closed off. There's caves in there. Maybe you saw this when you were looking into it. Back in the early 1900s, there was a guy by the name of G.E. Kincaid, Kincaid. He went exploring over there. There's lots of newspaper articles about it. And the Smithsonian supposedly got involved. But, once the Smithsonian gets involved, that's pretty much the end of the story with anything that doesn't go along the regular narrative. If they they get involved, and then that's it. Close the books. But G.E. Kincaid claimed and told the newspapers who printed it, lots of newspapers printed it in the early 1900s, to have found a lot of Egyptian artifacts there in caves in the Grand Canyon. He said he went exploring through a cave he found, and there, deep in there, he found sarcophagus. He found lots and lots of Egyptian artifacts, gold, jewelry, all sorts of manner of things. And those caves are closed off and guarded by the military to this day. But they, of course, assured us that they never found anything in there.
Well, maybe the Egyptian civilization was only localized on the surface in Egypt. Or some of these other colonies of Egyptian culture, or I guess ancient culture, we should say, that was supposedly alien or interdimensional creatures that taught our ancients all of these things. Maybe that was the only one that survived, was in Egypt. The rest of them were decimated for whatever reason.
Yeah, very well could be. And there's some stuff out there online that claims that the ancient people during the time period when they were building these pyramids and things would have had a way to teleport, if you will, from one spot on Earth to another, from one pyramid to another. The
Stargate theory.
Yeah, the stories about Thoth pretty much claim that that's what he had, and that's what the Egyptian pharaohs and the ruling class, that's what they had. They had the ability to go through a Stargate and to go from one pyramid to another in the world, which that would be incredible. If that's how things were set up, if you could just walk through and walk out somewhere else. So, have you seen that that on Facebook it was showing it sort of that there's lots of speculation that it was never meant to have the face of a human, the Sphinx.
I was supposed to be Anubis.
Right. That it was originally like the head of a dog.
Why does it have a human face in it? The face fell off?
It's been recarved. It's been damaged, and so it was supposedly the face that's on it was supposedly put on there by the Egyptians, in the more recent Egyptians, not the actual builders of the pyramid, but the people who moved in after.
Maybe to protect the history of the ancient humanoid Horus and Anubis the dog and Horus the eagle and the, I guess, hawk. I don't remember what bird of prey.
Right.
And all the other gods.
I find interesting how many mythologies seem to follow a general theme or path of the god that is associated with higher aspects or positive aspects, I should say, love, empathy, all those things, often associated with the eagle, and then the god associated with the more base human emotions and aspects, our fear, fight or flight, that sort of thing, is represented with a snake, and it's always just this pull between, the eagle attacks the snake. But from my understanding, all of that is meant to just be metaphorical. The snake is our base nature. Our at the very bottom of our brain is the reptilian brain, and then it builds
That's
up
why
from
they call
there.
it lizard brain.
Right?
Go break something or blow something up. That's lizard brain.
Yeah. But I hope during my lifetime we can see the world move back into something similar to what they had in these ancient times, where they were building in these understandings of advancing consciousness into their religious system or into the beliefs and the things they were teaching their people. Because all those mythologies and that sort of thing, that's what it was supposed to literally symbolize, raising your chakras and symbolize how many vertebrae is in your spine, and reaching an enlightened mind, And I suppose you could say modern religions attempt to do the same thing, but I don't think they necessarily do in the same way. I think modern religions more so want to keep people nice and well behaved, but they don't actually want to encourage deeper thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Rockefellers, when they first came into money and power, they're the ones that designed the public school system. But they didn't design it to create free thinking. They created it so they could create good workers.
Oh, yeah.
To fuel their machine or idea so that they could continue to, be dominant in the world that we live in.
Well, man, they've done a real good job of it. They've gotten a world where everybody we're used to things being in multiple choice. We're used to being steered right along their pathways of all we need to do is have a little bit of memorization and remember what we were taught and stick to that. So just kind of jumping back to the somatics and the ancient site, the pyramid, the Sphinx is being all over the place. This idea of hey, were ancient people, did they have a greater knowledge of using sound as a tool in ways that we're only just now starting to figure out again? We have only in recent decades has it become commonplace knowledge that, hey, we can use sound to get something to levitate. All you have to do is, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, I think you match its resonant frequency. And if you match its frequency, you can essentially get it to...
Yeah, I think the theory is that you can do it with water droplets, for sure. And they create a resonant frequency that resonates with the object, and then they create a high pressure system around both sides of it, and then a lower pressure system in which it sits in. So you could potentially do that with any object if you match the resonant frequency.
Okay. And so yeah, I got this article here is pretty much claiming that, maybe the ancients were trying to impart, not with their hieroglyphs, they weren't trying to write words like we might commonly understand with our alphabet, but that they were trying to pass along knowledge of cymatics, so a certain sound frequency, because we know every frequency makes a shape in water and sand and that sort of thing. So maybe they're telling us, hey, this is the frequency of this geographical area. Maybe that's it, and telling us also the not just the sound, but the polarity, the charge. What was the other thing? I feel like I'm missing one on here of what it said. Sound, polarity, light, resonance. So yeah, imprints of vibration in that area. So, if we are capturing fossilized harmonics in some of those spots, is that what some of our little glyphs are meant to show us? This is pretty cool on there. It's pretty much saying that the glyphs are like tuning forks, but a tuning fork made into stone.
So the glyphs are kind of a tuning fork?
Yeah, that's what this article is claiming, that a lot of the hieroglyphs we see in these ancient temples, for one, a lot of the glyphs are etched into places that are harmonic chambers. So chambers where we can tell they have been designed to amplify sound. So the idea is that maybe these glyphs in the wall that are, they're placed near resonant chambers. That's what we're looking for. That they are maybe designed for chanting, designed for drumming or ritual breath. That they're not just carvings, that they're activation points. So, they're placed on walls at specific spots to catch sunlight at specific angles. Well, we know that when we look at a lot of these temples where, they might have, they might be lined up to look at a certain star or catch a certain celestial alignment, and they're lined up just right to get the light in certain spots, So they were really intentional with how they made it, how they built these things. And I think in our pop culture, we've already acted out this idea and this belief. Think of an Indiana Jones movie where you get to a certain spot and you have to do just the right thing and everything starts moving, So that would make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, according to this, the hieroglyphs were likely not passive messages. They're static waveguides, dormant until awakened by light, sound, or consciousness. Which that's an interesting third part to throw in, the observer's intention. Our internal coherence may be the missing key to understanding some of those construction, some of those monuments. Just like a tuning fork only vibrates when matched, glyphs may only have sung when they're encountered by the right vibrational match, a breath-aligned, heart-centered witness. So I can picture that somewhat in my mind. Our heart is beating constantly. Our heart is beating in different rhythms based on what we're thinking and what we're feeling. I would imagine our own heartbeat has something to do with whatever vibe we're giving off at any given moment, So whatever intention and feeling we have inside has got to be part of the vibration around us and coming from us.
I feel like it all kind of ties together, that the window of light that's pointing at somewhere on the wall, and maybe that highlights a specific frequency or glyph on the wall, and that's the glyph that you're supposed to use at that moment because it's focused at a certain point of the center of the earth or a certain point in the far off galaxy that you can activate whatever you're trying to activate, and that's what the harmonic frequency
that this is the right resonant sound
Yeah,
for this
like-
moment.
Yeah, for that very moment. And, maybe as the sun moves, it moves to a different glyph, and then that's the right harmonic frequency for that moment,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
And and if we had a greater knowledge of harmonics, because every sound, every frequency has a certain shape. Some of them look incredibly intricate and complex, and some of them look chaotic. But if we had a greater understanding of what shape different frequencies make, maybe we could look at a glyph and we could say, oh, that's 770 hertz, or that's this frequency. So, if we're dealing with a people who were a lot more knowledgeable when it comes to sound, which, given the power of sound, the power to, with just matching the frequency, the resonant frequency of something, you can get something to vibrate, then that means we're all walking around with a superpower. Our voice, our words are wands, but
Yeah, every room has a resonant frequency, and you can go into like a cafe or McDonald's or something, and if you find the right frequency, it doesn't have to be very loud, but if you continue that frequency, it gets louder and louder and louder, and begins to reverberate upon itself, and then it gets so deafening that everybody in the room's like, I can't hear the person in front of me. It's kind of a fun little trick to do if you ever are bored and want to go out and just
I would. That
play
sounds
with,
fun.
Yeah, like you just find a tone and kind of hum it at a regular amount of velocity out of your mouth, and then if you find the right frequency, it will begin to grow and grow louder and louder and louder.
It's going to reverberate back and just kind of
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
build.
it's like a giant feedback loop.
That is really cool. Now, that is so cool. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a loud sound. It just has to be at the right frequency.
It just has to be the right frequency.
Now, as you say that, now I'm imagining that in the pyramid. Imagine hitting the right frequency in the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Yeah, ding dong.
Right.
Somebody's doorbell right there.
Yeah, yeah. That's got to be a crazy sound, Especially in my mind, I'm imagining some Egyptian high priest or something coming in there and them chanting at just the right frequency, and things start moving.
Maybe they're
I've
that
seen too
trained,
many
or maybe
movies.
they had an ancient tuning fork that had exactly the right frequency, and you strike it on something and then hold it on the specific rock, and it just
Send the vibration out, and all that's so. If sound vibration is what's causing it's behind the movement of everything, right? Everything is vibration. Everything's moving somewhat. So how much power is in that? Can you get power from that? Is that a way of concentrating energy?
if you had ultimate knowledge of vibration, you'd probably be able to manipulate this presence and whatever alternate reality, because alternate realities vibrate at a different frequency, supposedly, and some of them occupy the same space that we're already in, according to that theory, because 90% of us is just empty space in between electrons and protons,
Right.
right? And just the vibration is what creates that solid matter from what we experience.
So yeah, let's looking further into this article. Some of what it's talking about, we kind of just got to in our own minds. Yes, his temples were not quiet. They breathed, they echoed, they hummed. The ancients understood that sound was a force of creation. That's kind of what we were just saying. Not merely communication. Their architecture amplified it, shaped it, sculpted it. Stone was chosen not just for durability, but for resonance. And we go back to the limestone there, used of the pyramid in those constructions. Abundant in Egypt, it's not easy to carve, but it's a natural sound conductor. Chanting in a chamber carved from limestone produces subtle reverberation. When glyphs are etched into those walls, they don't just sit, they receive and they vibrate, they hum back. So could specific glyphs placed in resonant hotspots or chambers act as vibrational acupuncture points? Could a single vowel tone, properly intoned, cause a glyph to vibrate suddenly, aligning the visitor's field? It's harmonic physics. not fantasy. That's pretty fun food for thought. You know, you think the people in I would hope the people in governments and those who are, have actual power and control over those monuments to go and study, hopefully they've given stuff like this a shot already, They probably have and would never tell us. So look at this. Glyphs don't just interact with the eyes, they speak to the field of the body. Recent quantum biology reveals that structures inside our cells, microtubules, act as vibrational receivers. They're shaped like cylindrical waveguides capable of storing and transmitting frequency data at quantum scales.
So the structure of our cells are in itself a reverberation chamber.
Yeah. So it's not just our ears that are listening for vibration, apparently.
No.
Our entire body is looking to pick them up.
Group of cells is already listening to what our thoughts and vibrations already are.
So this is, what if microtubules respond to glyphic geometry the way tuning forks respond to pitch? What if sacred symbols trigger coherent cellular alignment simply through form? You wouldn't need to understand the glyph, your body would. It echoes just right back to us. That, I'm hoping we get more and more science with that. In the past, did we talk about in last week or the week before how, in the early 1900s, I think someone's come out with something like this again here recently. There was medical equipment out there that was being used to treat cancer and other illnesses just using sound and vibration.
Yeah. There's what's it called?
So the cartouche, while you're looking that up there, the cartouche is one of the most iconic elements in Egyptian glyph design. And for the listeners here, the cartouche appears to be an oval with different symbols on the inside. So traditionally understood as an oval ring enclosing the name of a pharaoh or deity, it served to distinguish divine identity from ordinary script. But this article is suggesting, what if the cartouche was not just a stylistic border, but meant to represent a resonant containment field? And that would make a lot more sense.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's called acoustothermal transfection for cell therapy. And it supposedly uses vibration or resonance to kill cancerous cells or transfected stem cells and T cells are promising in personalized cell therapy and immunotherapy against various diseases. However, existing transfection techniques face fundamental trade-off between transfection efficiency and cell viability. Achieving both simultaneously remains a substantial challenge. But this is just a medical journal that somebody put together with an medical abstract, and it talked about using sound to destroy cancerous cells.
So when they talk about the viability of the cells, is there concern for how this acoustic therapy might damage or affect other non-cancerous cells? Radiation and other forms of treatment do damage some healthy cells too, I believe. It's more of a wide net. Does this pose any risk to healthy cells?
I believe the theory is that cancer cells have a different acoustic resonance than a normal healthy cell would, and that it would be able to target with minimal, if not none at all, damage to healthy cells. And I think that's why it's such a groundbreaking technology that they'd be able to treat the patient without any massive side effects like chemo does.
That would be huge if they could do it, but I pretty sure seen where there were similar machines in the 20s and in other parts of the 1900s that seem to have a lot of fanfare and do similar things, be able to cure cancer and other illnesses. But the medical establishment crushed those inventions. So let's hope they don't crush this one.
Okay. Well, guys, thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or you can email us at denvertheorylab@gmail.com. Give us questions, comments, suggestions. If you want to disprove any of our theories or talk smack, feel free to message us at denvertheorylab@gmail.com.
Send us cool stuff to look into.